Martha Johnson was a woman who lived a quiet life. She was 72 years old and lived alone on a small ranch just outside a tiny town in Texas. Her ranch was not very big, but it was beautiful. There were wide open fields, a few trees, and a small wooden house that she had built with her own hands many years ago. Martha loved her ranch more than anything in the world. It was her home, her safe place, and the place where she felt peace. Every morning, Martha woke up early. She liked to start her day with a cup of black coffee on her porch. The porch looked out over the fields and the animals she cared for, a few cows, some chickens, and 2 horses named Daisy and Blue. The sun would rise slowly, painting the sky with colors of orange and pink. Martha would breathe in the fresh air and feel thankful for another day. People in the nearby town knew Martha as a kind, quiet woman. She didn't talk much about her past, and no one asked. Martha liked it that way. She enjoyed the simple life, far away from noise and crowds. The neighbors would wave to her when they passed by, and sometimes she would help with small things like fixing a broken fence or sharing fresh eggs. But most days, Martha was alone with her thoughts and her animals. What no one in town knew was that Martha's life was not always this peaceful. Long before she moved to the ranch, Martha had a very different life. She had been a soldier. Not just any soldier, but one of the best snipers in the special forces. She had traveled to many dangerous places around the world. She had faced situations where every second mattered and where her skills saved lives. But those days were long behind her. Martha had left that life to find peace on her ranch. Her neighbors could not imagine that the gentle, elderly woman who smiled and waved was once a highly trained sniper. She never talked about her time in the military. It was a part of her life she kept to herself. Martha believed that people should not be judged by their past but by who they were today. And today she was a rancher. Calm, caring, and strong in a different way. Martha's ranch was her pride. She took care of every corner of it. She fed her animals twice a day, repaired fences when the wind knocked them down, and worked in her small garden growing vegetables. She found joy in the simple things. Her favorite time was the evening when she would sit on the porch and watch the sun set behind the hills. That was when she felt closest to the memories of her family and friends she had lost over the years. One thing about Martha was clear. She loved her independence. She never wanted to depend on anyone else. Even though she was alone, she was not lonely. She had learned to enjoy her own company. She had books to read, old records to listen to, and the quiet sounds of nature all around her. The wind in the trees, the chirping of birds, and the soft mooing of cows were like music to her ears. But Martha knew that living alone also meant being careful. She had always been aware of the dangers of the world. When she heard strange noises or saw unfamiliar vehicles near her property, her old instincts woke up. Those instincts had saved her many times before. Even now, when her hands sometimes shook and her legs felt weaker, her mind was sharp. Martha was not a woman to be easily frightened. One afternoon, as Martha was fixing a broken fence near the edge of her property, she noticed something strange. A group of men were driving slowly down the dirt road leading to her ranch. They were not people she recognized. Their trucks looked heavy, and the way they moved was not normal. They seemed nervous and watchful. Martha stopped her work and watched quietly from behind a tree. The men parked their trucks near the entrance of the ranch. They did not get out right away. Instead, they whispered to each other and looked around. Martha's heart beat faster. She did not know who they were or what they wanted, but something felt wrong. She thought about calling the local sheriff, but then she remembered the old phone lines were sometimes unreliable in this part of town. Martha decided to stay calm. She moved slowly back to the house, thinking carefully about what to do next. She looked through her window and saw the men start to walk toward the fields. They began to open gates and let her cows out. Martha's anger rose quietly inside her. These men were breaking the rules of her peaceful life, but instead of shouting or running, Martha stayed silent. She watched them carefully, every movement reminding her of the days when she was trained to observe without being seen. She recognized that these men were not ordinary trespassers. They were dangerous and well-organized. Martha's past was coming back to her, and she felt the old power return. Later that evening, Martha sat on her porch, staring into the darkness. The sky was full of stars, but her mind was not at peace. She thought about the men on her land. She thought about how many times she had faced danger and how she had survived. She also thought about the years she had spent trying to forget that life and just be Martha, the rancher. A soft breeze blew across the porch, and Martha wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. She whispered to herself, "I'm ready." Not ready to fight for the past, but ready to protect her home. Ready to show that even though she was old, she was not weak. Ready to face whatever was coming. That night, as the wind rustled the leaves and the animals settled down for sleep, Martha's ranch was no longer just a quiet place. It had become a battleground, though no one outside the ranch could see it yet. The woman everyone thought was just an old neighbor was about to remind the world of the strength she still carried deep inside. And so, the quiet ranch waited in the dark, holding its breath for the storm that was about to come. The sun was setting behind the hills, casting long shadows across Martha Johnson's ranch. The sky was painted with soft shades of orange and purple. Birds were settling into their nests and the quiet hum of evening filled the air. But on the horizon, a dark cloud was slowly moving closer. Martha stood on her porch looking out at the fields where her animals grazed peacefully. Her eyes, sharp and steady, watched the dirt road that led to her home. She had noticed the strange men earlier that day, and now she felt certain they would not leave quietly. The ranch had always been a safe place for Martha, a place where she could breathe easy and be herself. But tonight the peace was breaking apart. In the distance, a group of trucks slowly rolled down the road. Dust rose behind the vehicles as they approached the entrance to the ranch. Martha's heart beat steadily, but her mind was calm. She had been trained to stay calm in dangerous moments. That training was still inside her like a hidden strength. The truck stopped near the gate. The men inside were strangers, rough-looking with serious faces and eyes that didn't belong in a peaceful town like this. They talked quietly, but their voices carried across the quiet night. They were planning something, and Martha could feel it in the air. One of the men stepped out and began to open the gate. The others followed, carrying bags and tools. They didn't know who Martha was or what she was capable of. They only saw an old woman living alone. To them, it looked like an easy target. Martha moved silently from the porch to her old wooden shed, her footsteps soft on the grass. Inside the shed, hidden under old blankets, was a box she had kept for many years. Inside the box was her rifle, the same rifle she had used in the Special Forces. It was old but cared for, a symbol of her past and her skill. She carefully lifted the rifle and checked it. Her hands were steady despite her age. She remembered the days when every shot mattered, when a small mistake could cost lives. That memory gave her strength. She was ready. Outside, the men began to explore the ranch. They opened gates and looked around, laughing and talking as if they owned the land now. They had no idea that Martha was watching, ready to protect her home. One of the men started to approach the barn where Martha kept some of her equipment. Martha moved quickly and quietly, climbing up a small hill that gave her a clear view of the ranch. From there, she could see everything, the men, the trucks, and the paths they might take. Her eyes scanned the scene carefully. She noticed how they moved in groups, how they talked in low voices, and how they checked their surroundings like they expected trouble. Martha's instincts told her these men were dangerous. She had faced people like this before in faraway places, but now they were on her land. The night grew darker and the men started a small fire near the trucks. They sat around it, sharing food and drinking something from cans. Martha stayed still, hidden in the shadows. Her mind was clear, her senses alert. She thought about how she had left the military life behind, how she had wanted nothing more than peace. But now peace was threatened, and Martha knew she could not let that happen. Suddenly, one of the men shouted. He had found one of her cows wandering too close to the road. The men started laughing and joking about the animal. Martha felt a sharp pain in her chest, not from fear but from anger. These men don't respect anything, she whispered to herself. This is my home. She remembered the promise she made to herself long ago, to protect those who could not protect themselves. That promise still burned inside her heart. As the night deepened, Martha made her decision. She would not let these strangers take over her ranch. She would use every skill she had learned to keep her land safe, not for revenge but for justice. Martha's eyes shone with quiet determination. She was not just an old woman sitting alone on a ranch. She was a guardian, ready to face the darkness that had come to her door. In the nearby town, the sheriff, James, was closing his office for the night. He had heard rumors about trouble near Martha's ranch but didn't think much of it. Martha was strong, he thought, and no one bothered her. But something inside him told him to check on her soon. Back at the ranch, Martha settled into her hidden position. She looked through the scope of her rifle and focused on the men around the fire. Her breath was steady. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger. The men did not see the shadow watching over them. They did not know that the peaceful rancher was a legendary sniper, trained to protect and survive. Martha's thoughts went back to her training, long days and nights of practice, the silence before a perfect shot, the responsibility she carried every time she aimed. She was ready to do what she had to do. Suddenly, the sound of a twig snapping nearby made the men stand up and look around. Martha stayed still, her heart steady. She knew she had to wait for the right moment. Time passed slowly. The men began to grow tired, some lying down to rest. Martha saw an opportunity to send a warning, not to hurt, but to protect. She fired a single shot, careful and precise. The bullet landed in the dirt close to the fire, kicking up dust and making the men jump in surprise. They looked around, trying to find where the shot came from. Martha remained silent, hidden in the shadows. She wanted them to understand that this was her land and that she was not afraid. The men quickly gathered their things and started moving, now aware that they were being watched and protected against. Martha stayed where she was until the trucks disappeared down the road and the night returned to quiet. When the first light of dawn touched the sky, Martha slowly walked back to her house. She was tired but calm. Her ranch was safe, for now. She knew that this was only the beginning. The men might come back, but Martha would be ready. She would protect her home and her peace no matter what. The ranch was quiet again, but Martha's mind was alive with memories and plans. She was not just a woman who loved her land. She was a warrior in her own way, and her story was far from over. And so, as the sun rose over the quiet ranch, Martha stood strong, ready to face the shadows on the horizon. The morning sun was warm, but the air still held a chill. Martha Johnson moved slowly around her ranch, tending to her animals as she always did. The soft sound of the cows chewing grass and the clucking of the chickens made her feel calm. Yet her mind was not at peace. The night before had reminded her that danger was close. The strange men who had come to her ranch were not ordinary visitors. Martha could feel it deep in her bones. They had tested her, sent a message, and now she knew they might come back, stronger, more dangerous. Martha's hands moved skillfully as she fixed the broken fence near the barn. Her years on the ranch had taught her to be patient and careful, but the memory of last night stayed with her. The fire, the whispering voices, the sound of that single bullet warning them to leave. She paused for a moment, looking out across the fields. The horizon was clear, but Martha knew better. She could see shadows that others couldn't, shadows of people who thought they could take what wasn't theirs. Her phone rang, breaking the silence. It was James, the local sheriff. Martha had known him for years. He was a good man, honest and strong, the kind of person you trusted. She answered quickly. "Good morning, Martha," James said, his voice calm but serious. "I heard there was trouble at your ranch last night. Are you all right?" Martha smiled softly, though James could not see it. "I'm fine, James, just some unwanted visitors. They didn't stay long after a little warning." James paused for a moment. "You're not thinking about handling this on your own, are you? Let me send some deputies to check on you." Martha shook her head even though James could not see her. "I appreciate it, James, but I'm all right. I just want to keep things quiet for now." James sighed but understood. "All right. Just call me if you need anything. We're close by." After the call, Martha felt a little better. It was good to know someone cared. But she also knew that she could not rely on anyone else. This was her land, her fight. As the day went on, the sun climbed higher and the men who had come before did not return. But Martha's eyes were sharp, watching every movement. The ranch felt different now, less like a peaceful home and more like a place waiting for a storm. In the afternoon, Martha decided to prepare. She walked slowly back to her shed where her rifle waited. She cleaned it carefully, her fingers moving with skill and care. The rifle was a part of her, a reminder of a past life she never forgot. She also checked the old binoculars she kept in the house. They were worn but still strong. She looked through them toward the hills and the roads around her ranch. The world was bigger than her ranch, and the threat could come from many directions. Martha remembered the days when she trained with other soldiers. The long hours of practice, the discipline, and the focus. Those memories gave her strength now. She was ready to protect what was hers. Later, as the sun began to set, Martha saw movement near the far edge of her property. Two men were walking slowly, carrying backpacks and looking around as if searching for something. They didn't see her hidden behind a tree. Martha's heart beat steady but strong. She had to act. She raised her binoculars to get a better look. These men were part of the group that had come before. They were scouting, trying to find a way to take over her ranch. She whispered to herself, "Not on my watch." Martha moved quickly but quietly to the small hill overlooking her land. From there, she had a clear view of the men. She could see their faces now, serious and alert but careless enough to be caught. Her fingers touched the rifle and she took a deep breath. She was not going to hurt them, but she needed to send a message, a clear warning that the ranch was protected. She aimed carefully, choosing a spot near the men, but not too close. Her training guided her hands. She fired a shot that landed just a few feet away from them, kicking up dust and making the men jump in surprise. They looked around, trying to find the source of the shot. Martha stayed still, her heart calm. The message was clear: leave now or face consequences. The men quickly gathered their things and ran back toward the trucks. Martha watched until they disappeared down the road. Her breath was steady, and a small smile touched her lips. She had protected her home. That night, Martha sat on her porch, looking at the stars. The ranch was quiet again, but she knew the peace was fragile. The men might come back, and when they did, she would be ready. But it was not just about the fight. Martha thought about the life she wanted to live, a life of peace and kindness, surrounded by nature and the animals she loved. She thought about the future of the ranch, about the memories she wanted to keep alive, and about the strength she carried inside her. Strength born not just from skill, but from years of hope and courage. Her phone rang again. It was James checking in. Martha told him she was fine, but he insisted on coming to see her the next day. "Good," Martha said softly. "I could use a friend." The night wrapped around the ranch like a blanket. Martha's eyes grew heavy, but her mind stayed alert. She knew the road ahead would be hard, but she was not afraid. She was Martha Johnson, quiet rancher, protector, and a woman with a past that gave her power, and she was ready for whatever came next. The early morning light spilled softly over Martha Johnson's ranch. The birds sang their gentle songs, and the breeze carried the fresh smell of earth and grass. But Martha's heart was heavy, filled with memories she tried to keep buried deep inside. She knew the danger was not far away, and it stirred something old and strong inside her, the ghosts of her past. The past Martha had left behind was a world far from the quiet life she now lived. A world of danger, discipline, and skill. A world where every decision could mean life or death. For many years, she had been a sniper in the Special Forces and one of the best. Her sharp eyes, steady hands, and calm mind saved lives on battlefields far from home. Now that past had caught up with her on this peaceful ranch. After the warning shots, the men had disappeared. But Martha knew they were only gone for now. They would return, and next time they might not leave so easily. Her thoughts drifted back to her time in the military. She remembered the long days of training, learning how to move without being seen, how to wait patiently for the perfect moment. She remembered the friends she had lost and the missions she had completed. She remembered the feeling of being part of something bigger than herself, and the weight of responsibility she carried. Those memories were both painful and powerful. They reminded her of who she was, a woman who had faced fear and come through stronger. Martha shook her head, pushing the memories aside. She was here now, on her ranch, and she had a job to do. She moved around the house with quiet purpose, preparing for what might come next. She cleaned her rifle carefully, checking every part as if it were alive. She wanted it ready just as she wanted herself ready. Her phone rang again. This time it was James, the sheriff. He was on his way to the ranch, worried and wanting to help. When James arrived, Martha greeted him with a tired but warm smile. He looked around the ranch, noticing the broken fence and the signs of trouble, but he also saw the calm strength in Martha's eyes. "We need to be ready," Martha said quietly. "They might come back and they won't be afraid." James nodded. "I've called for backup. We'll watch the area, but you need to stay safe. Martha appreciated his words, but she knew the truth. This was her fight. She was not going to run or hide. She was going to protect her home. As the day passed, Martha and James talked about the best ways to keep the ranch safe. They set up plans to watch the roads and the fields. James promised to check in often, but Martha's mind was elsewhere. She thought about the men who had come to her land. She wondered what they wanted and why they had chosen her ranch. That night, as darkness covered the land, Martha sat on her porch with her rifle beside her. The stars shone bright above, but her eyes looked far beyond them, into the memories of a past life. Suddenly, a soft noise broke the silence. Martha's heart quickened, but her hands were steady. She stood and moved quietly toward the barn. She saw shadows moving near the fence. 2 men were trying to cut the wire to get inside. Martha didn't hesitate. She raised her rifle and took aim. Her hands moved just as they had in the past, steady and sure. Before the men could reach the gate, a sharp warning shot rang out, echoing across the fields. The bullet hit the ground close to their feet, sending dirt flying. The men froze, then dropped their tools and ran into the night. Martha lowered her rifle, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. She did not want to hurt anyone. She only wanted to protect what was hers. As she walked back to the house, her mind wandered again to her time in the military. She remembered the faces of those she had lost and the promise she had made to herself, to use her skills only for good. That promise was still alive. The next morning, Martha found a small note pinned to her porch door. It was a simple message written in rough letters. "Leave now or we will come back." Martha looked at the note and smiled softly. The threat was clear, but so was her answer. She folded the note carefully and put it inside her pocket. Then she called James. "They are serious," she said, "but I'm not afraid." James promised to send more deputies to patrol the area. He also suggested Martha stay with family or friends for a few days, but Martha refused. "This is my home," she said firmly. "I will protect it." James respected her choice, but he worried. He knew Martha was strong, but he also knew how dangerous the men were. Over the next few days, the town buzzed with news of the trouble at Martha's ranch. Some people came by to offer help, others to watch from a distance, but Martha remained calm, focused on her task. She spent hours practicing with her rifle, moving quietly through the fields and preparing for the worst. One afternoon, as she sat on the porch, a young girl from the town came by. Her name was Emily, and she often stopped to say hello. "Are you scared, Martha?" Emily asked quietly. Martha looked at the girl and smiled gently. "Sometimes fear is natural," she said, "but courage is what helps us move forward." Emily nodded, her eyes wide with admiration. Martha felt a warmth inside. She realized that her fight was not just for herself, but for the people who cared about her and the land she loved. As night fell again, Martha stood on the porch, rifle in hand. The ranch was quiet, but her mind was alert. She knew the men would come back, but she was ready. Her past had taught her to be patient, strong, and brave. And her present was proof that even the quietest souls could carry the fiercest strength. Martha whispered into the night, "I am ready." The ghosts of her past were not fears to run from, but lessons to guide her. And on this ranch, under the wide Texas sky, Martha Johnson would stand guard, a protector, a warrior, and a woman who would never give up her home. The sun rose slowly over Martha Johnson's ranch, bathing the land in soft golden light. The morning was calm, but beneath the peaceful surface, tension lay thick like a silent storm waiting to break. Martha knew this calm was temporary, a brief pause before the real test. For days, the men had stayed away, but Martha's senses told her they were watching. She could feel their eyes on her from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Yet she was not afraid. She was ready. The ranch, with its wide fields and quiet hills, was more than just a place to Martha. It was a symbol of freedom, strength, and peace. It was a place she had fought to keep, and she would never give it up. That morning, Martha walked slowly along the fence line, inspecting the repairs she had made. Her hands were steady, but her mind was alert. She thought about the note left on her porch, a warning she refused to heed. Suddenly, she heard a faint rustle near the bushes. Her hand instinctively went to her rifle, and she moved quietly toward the sound. From behind a tree, a small dog emerged, wagging its tail happily. Martha smiled softly. The dog belonged to a neighbor who often visited. The little animal brought a brief moment of joy to the tense morning. Martha petted the dog gently. "You're a good boy," she said softly. "Come on, let's find your owner." As she walked toward the road, the peaceful moment lifted her spirits. But she knew the danger was still close. Later that day, James, the sheriff, arrived with 2 deputies. They set up a small patrol around the ranch, watching the roads and paths carefully. James looked at Martha with concern. "We're doing everything we can to protect you," he said. "But you need to be careful." Martha nodded. "Thank you, James. I know you're doing your best." The deputies set up cameras and sensors around the property. Technology was different from the old days, but Martha welcomed the help. Every little advantage mattered. That night, as the sky grew dark, Martha sat on her porch with James. They talked quietly, sharing stories about the town and their lives. James admired Martha's strength. "You've been through so much," he said. "But you never show fear." Martha smiled gently. "Fear is natural," she replied. "But courage is what we choose to show." Their conversation was a rare moment of comfort in a world filled with uncertainty. Martha felt grateful for James's friendship. Suddenly, a distant noise broke the calm, the sound of engines on the road. Martha's heart quickened. She stood, moving to the edge of the porch. Lights from several trucks appeared on the horizon, moving steadily toward the ranch. James grabbed his radio, calling for backup. The deputies prepared themselves, but Martha's eyes were fixed on the approaching vehicles. The men had returned. Martha's mind went back to her training. Every sense sharpened. She knew the importance of staying calm, of making every move count. She moved to a hidden spot near the barn where she could watch the trucks without being seen. Her rifle was ready, her breath steady. The truck stopped near the gate and the men climbed out. They were confident, armed, and looking for a fight. Martha watched as they began to move into the ranch, breaking fences and shouting orders. She waited, knowing that a single shot could change everything. But she also knew this was not a battle to rush into blindly. She had to be smart, careful. From her hidden spot, Martha called James on her phone. "They're here," she whispered. "Be ready," James replied quickly, his voice steady. "We're on our way." The men on the ranch didn't expect resistance. They thought Martha was just an old woman who would give up easily. They were wrong. Martha focused on one man who was trying to cut a gate lock. Her finger touched the trigger. She aimed carefully, watching his every movement. Before she fired, she heard a noise behind her. She turned quickly to see James and the deputies arriving, ready to protect her. Together, they moved quietly but confidently toward the men. Suddenly, Martha fired a warning shot near the man cutting the lock. The sound was sharp and clear, echoing across the fields. The men froze, looking around in surprise and fear. James shouted, "This is the sheriff's office. Leave now or you will be arrested." The men hesitated, unsure what to do. Martha took another shot, this time closer to the trucks. The message was clear. The ranch was protected. Slowly, the men backed away, climbing into their trucks. James and his deputies followed, ready to call for backup if needed. Martha watched them leave, her heart steady but alert. The fight was not over, but this battle was won. As the trucks disappeared down the road, Martha felt a wave of relief wash over her. She looked at James and smiled. "Thank you for being here," James nodded. "You're stronger than I thought, Martha." That night, Martha sat again on her porch, looking at the stars. The ranch was quiet once more. She thought about the men who had come to take her land. They had underestimated her strength and her courage, but Martha knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be hard, and the battle for her ranch was far from over. Still, she felt hope. She was not alone. Friends like James were by her side, and her own strength was greater than any danger. Martha whispered into the night, "This is my home. I will protect it." And with that promise, she closed her eyes, ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. The sun rose slowly over the ranch, casting long shadows across the land Martha Johnson loved so much. The air was still, but the quiet did not bring peace. It was a calm before the final storm. Martha knew this day would change everything. The men from the cartel had returned. This time they were not just scouting or testing her strength. They had come to take what they believed was theirs. But Martha was ready. Her past as a special forces sniper had prepared her for moments like this. Years of training, discipline, and experience gave her calm in the face of danger. But more than that, her love for this land, her home, gave her courage. Early that morning, Martha walked through her ranch, checking her traps and setting alarms. The deputies had left after the last confrontation, but James promised to come back if needed. Today she was alone. She carried her rifle carefully, her steps light but confident. The animals sensed the tension too. The horses were restless and the dog stayed close to her side. Suddenly the sound of engines broke the silence. Martha stopped, her heart steady but alert. Several trucks appeared on the horizon, moving fast and with purpose. The men were back. Martha moved quickly to her hidden spot, a place she had chosen long ago for moments like this. From there, she had a clear view of the gate and the open field beyond. The truck stopped near the fence, and the men climbed out carrying tools and weapons. They began cutting the fence and moving toward the house. Martha's finger rested lightly on the trigger. Her eyes focused, her breathing slow, but before she could fire, a voice called out from the road, "Stop! This is the sheriff's office." James and a group of deputies arrived just in time, blocking the men's path. The men hesitated, confused by the unexpected resistance. Martha took the opportunity. She stepped out of her hiding place, holding her rifle with calm strength. "Leave now," she said, her voice clear and steady. "This land is mine, and I will protect it." The leader of the men sneered, but Martha could see fear in his eyes. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he said, trying to sound tough. Martha smiled, a cold and knowing smile. "I do, and I'm ready." Suddenly a shot rang out, not from Martha, but from one of the deputies, warning the men to back off. The tension grew thick, but Martha stood firm. One by one, the men lowered their weapons and retreated to their trucks. James stepped forward. "You're under arrest for trespassing and destruction of property. Leave this land or face the law." The men, seeing no choice, climbed into their trucks and sped away. Martha watched until they disappeared down the road. Her heart was still, but inside a storm of relief and pride raged. James walked over to her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You were amazing today, Martha. You stood strong." Martha looked at him, her eyes shining. "I had to. This is my home." The sun climbed higher, warming the land and washing away the last shadows of the night's danger. Martha took a deep breath, feeling the strength of the land and the people who stood with her. She knew the fight might come again someday, but she was ready. Her past, her skills, and her courage had brought her through. But more than that, it was her heart, the love for this ranch and the life she had built, that made her strong. Later that afternoon, the town gathered around Martha's ranch. People came to offer their support, bringing food, helping fix fences, and sharing stories. Martha felt a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time, the warmth of community. James spoke to the crowd, praising Martha's bravery and reminding everyone that standing together was the best defense against danger. As the sun began to set, Martha sat on her porch watching the sky turn pink and gold. Emily, the young girl from the town, sat beside her, looking up with wide eyes. "Will they come back?" Emily asked quietly. Martha smiled, placing a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. "Maybe, but if they do, we'll be ready together." Emily nodded, feeling braver just hearing those words. Martha looked out over the fields, feeling peace settle in her heart. Her fight was not just for herself, but for the people, the land, and the future she believed in. She whispered softly, "This is my home, and I will always protect it." The stars began to shine one by one over the quiet ranch, and Martha Johnson, rancher, protector, and warrior, stood strong, ready for whatever the future held.